People need a healthcare system that controls costs and provides security to families. And I know the American people share the urgency that I feel, the sense that we must act now.
Welcome back to America Decides. That was then First Lady Hillary Clinton back in 1993 talking about her signature issue at the time, health care. The role of First Lady has changed a lot since then, especially in the last 30 years. New York Times White House correspondent Katie Rogers joins us now. She is the author of the book American Woman, The Transformation of the Modern First Lady from Hillary Clinton to Jill Biden. Katie, congratulations on the book. It's a terrific read.
Thank you.
I've learned a lot, especially about First Lady Jill Biden. You spent time with her during the course of your reporting. What was the big takeaway about her influence in this administration?
I think my big takeaway is that she is way more influential than I think she would publicly say or acknowledge. I think that she is somebody that her husband trusts implicitly. I think he's somebody, as you know, who has a very small circle of advisors and confidants around him. And at the center of that circle is the First Lady. She is not involved in every sort of policy discussion. I think she was involved in his student loan forgiveness program, for example, because she is an educator. But she's involved in everything political. She was part of the team that signed off on the No Malarkey bus tour in 2020, and she is somebody who watches closely over campaign videos and how he looks and presents himself. She's somebody who really is looked upon to sort of say, yes, this is letting Joe be Joe. This is the Biden we know. She's very, like the keeper of sort of that legacy along with him.
A true confidant of President Biden. I thought it was really intriguing how you look at Hillary Clinton's experience and how that forged how the First Lady often operates in the modern era. Why did you decide to use Clinton as a sort of tent pole in this broader discussion?
I think because she was the most ambitious modern First Lady that we have had. I think Eleanor Roosevelt is sort of the standard bearer for a First Lady who really took on her own initiatives and spoke on behalf of the president and held her first, her own press conferences and the like. But Hillary Clinton was somebody who had a law career. She was educated. She had the confidence of her husband on a policy-making level to take on healthcare. He assigned that to her within months of taking office, and really looking at what they call in politics the scar tissue that came with the Clintons sort of pushing too far, too fast on an initiative and having the First Lady as sort of the leader of that. So that was one major reason. And another, it's just the 90s were a decade where our technology was changing rapidly. The discourse around politics was beginning to really change. The Clinton impeachment really was the precursor to what we see now with tribalized politics. So she really just seemed like a natural bookend to sort of exploring this, I guess, generation of millennial First Ladies.
When I was reading your book, it seems like I used to think the worst job in Washington was vice president.
Yeah.
But this job of being First Lady, the first spouse, if we have a first female president in the coming years, it'll be the first spouse or whatever they end up calling it.
It'll be interesting to see what they come up with.
Because first gentleman, it seems a little like 19th century.
It does.
But this job is vague. There's no job description.
Yeah, and it's not even a job. It's, I call it in the book, the most scrutinized volunteer gig in the country. And it's really the only role in American politics that you can think of where somebody is expected to do this out of the goodness of their heart. And it is a job that can be incredibly isolating. Half the country doesn't like you no matter what you do. Actually, I think Jill Biden's polling is 30 like her, 30 don't like her, and 30 don't know who she is. So you're up against a divided American public. So really, it's a volunteer role. It's completely optional, and that was something that Melania Trump really illuminated, I think, for the country too, with the way she took on the role and its expectations.
And it's an important role. I mean, you think about former vice presidents, they lose Secret Service protection. First ladies keep it forever.
Yeah, and in my conversations with Jill Biden, she had talked to me about what you actually lose with that living in the bubble, as it were. She asked, how would you feel if you could never drive a car again? When she wants to open the window at the White House, the Secret Service has to clear the park below. So it's a really privileged life. Don't get me wrong, but it's also one that is very isolated from the life you or I would lead, and some of the most interesting parts of researching and reporting this book, it was looking at those moments where first ladies would try to break out of that and keep something for themselves. And Jill Biden's career is that for her.
Now, we have an unusual circumstance potentially with a former First Lady, Melania Trump, maybe coming back to the role of First Lady. What's your assessment of her and how she sees the role, especially should she come back?
So I think she's an interesting figure in the sense that she enjoyed the title of being First Lady and the pomp that came with that, the ceremonial trappings of the role, much like her husband liked all of that with the presidency. But I think that she is somebody who did not like the scrutiny that came with living in the White House. My reporting suggests that she would be, supportive of being, him running and being First Lady again. She would do it. But I also don't have reporting that suggests that she would move to Washington full time. She delayed her move the first time by several months to get her son settled. She likes her life in Florida. So I think she's somebody that only she really knows that decision and what it's going to look like till she has to make it.
And final thing, what should we really be paying attention to with First Lady Jill Biden in the coming months before the election? What are you watching?
I'm watching how she speaks about Donald Trump, the former President Trump. She is somebody who's really gone directly at him and his track record, particularly on women's rights and reproductive rights. She is somebody who is an enormously popular surrogate for her husband. She's a fundraising draw. I think her fundraising emails are a huge grassroots donor draw. So I think I'm looking at what she is saying as she tries to strike a deeper contrast against former President Trump and her husband.
Katie Rogers, the author of American Woman, really great read, insights into our country, the East Wing, a lot to learn from this role and this book. Katie Rogers, thank you.
Thanks.